Ngowi TV, informed economists and business perspective.
I believe that this conference will be beneficial to all the stakeholders involved. Paper writers will get the critical feedback they need to review their papers. Small entrepreneur and business persons who will learn new techniques and strategies of improvement in production and marketing. And policymakers will take on board the recommendations provided at the end of this conference. And I commend once again the business school for keeping the flame alight and for continuing this tradition for this long. I hope that the momentum created in organizing these conferences will be sustained for a long time to come. And it's no new.
When you talk about SMEs, just don't look about the SMEs themselves. Look at what financial service providers need to really service SMEs and what SMEs need to really get access to the financial service provider. And I think that gap, the supply-demand issue, is really important for you guys as the researchers, and it will help us move to the next level.
The rate of tax for Tanzania is still at 44%, which is quite high compared to the rest of East African countries and even other countries in Africa. So there's a room to reduce the tax and provide more incentive. As I said, good initiative in 2017-2018 Finance Act, but there's a room for improvement in other sectors, tourism, construction, improving access to finance. Maybe commercial banks should be encouraged to provide long-term financing. Government should also take some risk and consider things like credit guarantee schemes. I know there's someone from Bank of Tanzania who will talk about.
But also, we want industries that will have what we call a mass domestic consumption, produce for mass consumption. Again, there are issues of consumer behavior that filter in here. The extent to which this population desires to consume goods, industrial goods, produced in the economy. I do teach managerial economics, and I tell my students, and I'll tell you here, if you are my students, most of you are my colleagues, if we look among ourselves, to what extent are we seeing, for example, in terms of clothes or footwear, that are domestically produced? I think there is this inclination towards imported goods and services. I think I'm going on with African I do call a spade a spade.
Another element which also you may pick from these developments is the issue of coordination. As you can see now, with convergence of technology, development of product is becoming a multi-stakeholders, multi-agents. So how do we improve cooperation between, for example, mobile money network operators, mobile network operators, and financial service providers, at business level and also at policy level?
My name is Zainab, Salome, Msimbe. I work as a partner in insurance line of service, where mainly I do audits. So I'm one of the products of the University of Dar, and it's my privilege and honor to be here today to participate in this very important forum. And for me, it's really a pride to see the University of Dar Business School organizing an African conference on SMEs development. So credit to you, the leadership of the University of Dar Business School. I'll start by commending the fifth government of Tanzania under the leadership of our President John Pombe Magufuli for its strong commitment to industrialize the economy and thereby, creating employment to the young Tanzanians, but also making Tanzania a high status middle income country by 2036. That is his ambition, much as we are trying to go to a middle income country by 2025, but eventually I believe we'll get to high middle income status country. As Madam Evelyn said, I'll be talking about opportunities and challenges of SMEs towards industrialization, and I'll organize my remarks around three areas. Number one, why SMEs matters for inclusive growth in Tanzania and Africa at large. Opportunities for SMEs in the current economic environment, where we're talking about industrialization. and the actions that are needed to promote this deeper participation by SMEs in industrialization. So as we are aware, the economy of Tanzania has been growing over the past 5 years at the average rate of 7%, which is very good compared to the rest of Eastern Africa and Sub-Saharan African countries. But unfortunately, this growth has not really translated into eradicating poverty among Tanzanians. So if you look at the World Bank report, almost 12 million Tanzanians, they live, below the poverty line. And nevertheless, the micro and small medium enterprises play a significant role for improving the growth in the economy and reduce poverty level in many respects. And these include creating employment. According to Tanzania National Bureau of Statistics, as of December 2015, there were about 50,000 industries. It's shocking, but again, the question is whether all these are actually operating. But the numbers is not really shocking, because I was reading a report the other day, and it appears between October 2015 and October 2016, about 1,400 industries were actually established. Although this data does not show which one of these are actually SMEs and which ones are large enterprises, but the UNIDO survey, which is way back in 2012, suggests that 80% of these are actually in the informal sector, where your SMEs actually belong to that sector. But SMEs, again, through job creation, they distribute income through the salaries to employees, as well as income they provide to the suppliers of goods and services to these SMEs, to balance the imbalance in the balance of payment. Most developing countries, and Tanzania is not the exception, we do import a lot than we export. So if you look at the Bank of Tanzania, the balance of trade as at January 2017 stood at a deficit of about US $1.8 billion, notwithstanding that this is actually an improvement due to reduction in importation. It will be done better by empowering SMEs. We'll be able to actually export more. But these SMEs, again, are the driving force of innovation and competitiveness. For instance, we all know about the story in the United States, maybe the majority of us, not all of us. The likes of Uber, the likes of Airbnb, all these started as SMEs companies, but today they are multinational companies. But despite this tremendous contribution to the economy, SMEs faces a number of challenges, and that's where I will dwell. The previous presenter highlighted to you some of the challenges of SMEs, but allow me to talk about these challenges because that is more of my paper. So these challenges can actually be looked from two angles: from an outsider, someone like me, an auditor, a consultant, a financial institution, as well as from an insider point of view, through the SMEs themselves. As an outsider, I would like to cite one of the challenges as managerial and business administration skills. SMEs actually faces the highest failure rate compared to many businesses, due to poor managerial and business administrative skills. In Tanzania, we do not have a data for failure, but I was just looking at Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, and it appears, approximately 400,000 SMEs actually become a failure. So Tanzania cannot be exceptional looking at the economy that we are actually operating. They don't have good governance, and succession plan is an issue. So you find most of these SMEs, the owner is the chairman of the board, and even sometimes when the private investor wants to come and put in capital, that separation of business and ownership is very difficult to attain in an SME business. So the CFO, salesperson, everything. When this person becomes sick, the business goes on hold. When they die, eventually it dies because of poor succession plan. But not that, poor record keeping from coming where I come from. Sometimes we go to just medium sort of enterprises, and you go to seek business. And then they look at you and say, you are PwC, you're too big for us. And I come here to help you, because we want to see you again graduating from being SMEs to the likes of corporates. And most of the times you find this incomplete record, and due to very basic bookkeeping knowledge. 2 years ago, I was approached by one of the commercial banks, and to be honest, I was impressed. All they wanted is for us to partner with them and do a training to their SMEs portfolio. Because you've seen majority of these banks, they have an SME portfolio. So specifically, their SME portfolio is quite big. You're talking about even $10 million US. That is SMEs according to them, because different banks have got different, categories. So we did a training on bookkeeping, and it was pathetic to know that even the business plan preparation, some of them, they're not even be the ones preparing. And yet when they want to go and get a credit from banks, they get someone to prepare a plan that they do not own, they do not even understand. Working capital management issues is one of the things that we covered, and it was really pathetic. But in the end, you could see the impacts that, such kind of things like training made to this group. Compliance with laws and regulations. The most, the first and utmost reaction of these SMEs when you meet them, there are too many laws, too many taxes, and bureaucratic in Tanzania. And maybe that is not any different, because the ease of doing business report by the World Bank. Again, Tanzania got 132 positions out of 190. So that complements what SMEs are actually saying. The legal and regulatory framework is bureaucratic. It's one of the indicators from the World Economic Forum report as well. Tax law, actually paying taxes and starting business. Those two indicators scored very low in that World Economic Forum report. And an example of this is like, employment cost when it comes to payroll taxes. You have to pay WCF, whether you are SMEs, as long as you employ people, but you still have to pay SDL, you have to pay social contribution cost, all that add to the cost of employment. And then comply on these laws and regulations, the results to very heavy penalties that affect the going concern of most of these SMEs. It is pathetic that some of them, they have to shut down. Financing has been touched about, of course. Getting credit is not easy. The interest rates are quite high, but sometimes maybe there's a balance. You can't really pass all the blames to the bank because of the risks associated in the SMEs as well. Investors, again, they're hesitant to invest in SMEs. But changes in laws and policies, it's good to come up with changes. It's good to come up with changes, and some of the changes, in a way, they have a positive impact to the economy. But the thing is, most of these policy changes, the private sector, where SMEs belongs, they are not really properly or sufficiently consulted and engaged in making the changes and policies. But not only that, the time to implement the changes is also not sufficient. So a good example is the introduction of VAT in the tourism services in 2016-2017. So you find in this business, because I've got a number of clients in this business, you receive bookings in advance. So now you have a new tax law that requires you to include VAT. And already there are bookings you have received on a certain rate. Now suddenly after 2 months, then what do you do? How do you comply based on the previous bookings that you have actually received? Competition. Yeah, globalization is good, but most of the import partners for Tanzania are the likes of China, India, South Africa, United Emirates. So SMEs are not yet there, as pointed out by the previous presenter in terms of technology. But regardless, there are opportunities. There are opportunities, and it's good to be positive. As I said earlier, the commitment by the current government to industrialize the economy, that provides quite a number of opportunities to SMEs, because in an effort to do so, government has taken a number of measures. Albeit there's a room for improvement, but it's always good to recognize the positive sort of measures that have been taken so far. One of them is investment in infrastructure. Recently, our government has been investing heavily in infrastructure. Talk about the dry port project in Gulu. We talk about the standard railway gauge, both phase 1, phase 2. All these massive projects, as they are happening, business should also happen. Not to mention the Hoima Tanga oil pipeline. So where there are these projects, again, SMEs should not be sleeping. Access to regional markets. I was reading was it an East African newspaper the other day, and I was impressed to see that nowadays the truck drivers, they spend only 48 minutes in the weighing bridges, at the borders between Burundi, Rwanda, Uganda, which is positive in terms of reduction of time. So with all these trading relationships that are getting better, provide opportunities to SMEs to trade with these neighboring countries. Population growth. Talking about 1963, where Tanzania was, had 11 million people. Today we're talking about 56, and even statistics show that in 2035, the population will be over 80 million. This population, it's a dividend that gives our SMEs actually resources, both skills as well as unskilled when we talk about the cheap labor. There's a lot to be done in legal and regulatory environment. But again, to respond to the complaint about bureaucracy, there are some of the measures that are being taken. One of them is online business registration. Of course, there's a room for this partial sort of implementation. You can register your business name, but the company registration still has to be done manually. But also in the Finance Act for 2017-2018, there are quite a number of tax reforms and levies, to enhance the growth of particularly agriculture sector, and SMEs in that sector also benefit. Agricultural output, according to Food and Agriculture Organization, about 45% of the land area in Tanzania is actually good for agriculture. So if you look at agriculture and the industrialization development, these actually, they are not sort of alternatives, but they complement one another in terms of input and output. With all these opportunities, what are the actions? Because there's still some action that are needed to promote deeper participation by SMEs in industrialization. These actions, they're needed both at the economy level as well as enterprise level. Some of them is fostering a more conducive business environment. Predictability of policy making is central. Without that, private sector will not have any confidence to invest. So the government should continue to engage with private sector and in a way engage with SMEs that belongs to the private sector when they want to implement new policies. Decrease cost of doing business. If you look at that World Bank report, World Economic Forum, the Global Competitiveness Report, the rate of tax for Tanzania is still at 44%, which is quite high compared to the rest of East African countries and even other countries in Africa. So there's a room to reduce the tax and provide more incentive. As I said, good initiative in 2017-2018 Finance Act, but there's a room for improvement in other sectors, tourism, construction, improving access to finance. Maybe commercial banks should be encouraged to provide long-term financing. Government should also take some risk and consider things like credit guarantee schemes. I know there's someone from Bank of Tanzania who will talk about, maybe we'll touch about that as well. Review education curricula, good initiative by the business school, but if this can be started at lower grades, where you have your common subjects in secondary schools, but also bringing entrepreneurship studies as well. Promote large-scale farming. They should continue investing in infrastructure. A lot of projects are ongoing, including the power project, but more investment should continue. And in conclusion, the good news is, even the World Bank Enterprise Surveys tells us that, these foreign investors, actually, they do prefer to source goods and services from local firms, as long as they can get what they want in terms of good quality and cost effectiveness. So the potential to develop the country through industrialization with the participation of SMEs is undisputable or undeniable. Thank you very much. I look forward to active participation, and I hope we'll identify what, who, and who should do what in terms of increasing the participation of SMEs in industrialization. Thank you so much.